Thank you for joining us today at Wildly Undivided. If you enjoy these studies, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Ecclesiastes chapter 7b. We did A, which is half the chapter last week, so now we're doing the second part of the chapter this week, and I'm calling it snares. What is a snare? A trap? Okay, yep, she got it. So a snare is an unsuspecting trap that catches you when you don't expect it. Or actually, you kind of fall into it. It's been set as a means to ensnare you, to entrap you, and to hold you back or hold you down and stop you. So as we go through this, there's a lot of traps, there's a lot of snares to life. And that's kind of what he's talking about. We went through and talked about some Proverbs, but now he's going to be like, hey, in this situation and over here and all this and this other stuff, he's going to say something strange like, don't be too righteous. And that sounds strange, right? That's like saying, don't be too holy. Can you be too holy? I mean, God is holy, holy, holy. He's perfect in his holiness. So can you be too holy? We want to understand like why that would be a trap. Why is that a snare? Why is that something that he's trying to explain that we want to avoid? So let's start in verse 14. He says, in the day of prosperity, be joyful, and in the day of adversity, consider. God has made the one as well as the other, so that man may not find out anything that will be after him. What is the trap that he's talking about here? Let me ask you this. Has anybody in their life been in a season where everything was just going good? It's just a good part of life. We call that prosperity or blessing. And what do you think in that season? It's along those lines that life is good. And he says, be joyful, enjoy it, but it's going to change. And I think the trap is thinking it won't. Everything's good and it's going to stay good. Everything's peaceful and it's going to stay peaceful. But then he says, then comes adversity. There's going to be prosperity, there's going to be good seasons, and there's going to be bad seasons. And when there's bad seasons, consider this. Think about this. God has made both. He has given us both prosperity and adversity. Why? He does it so that we can learn to be content no matter the situation. We can learn to appreciate our past. We can learn to endure the present. And we can have hope for the future. That if it's good, it won't always be good. But if it's bad, it also won't always be bad. He's made it so that we don't know what the future holds. So ultimately, you realize that you're not in control. Because if I'm in control, everything's going to be good all the time. There wouldn't be any adversity, no difficulty, because I'm in control. Why would there be adversity? Why would I be like, you know what? I'm going to purposefully try to make my wife upset. I'm going to purposefully screw up at work so that my boss will yell at me. No, if I'm in control, my boss is going to love me. My wife and I are going to get along perfectly. But here's the thing. I'm not in control. God is in control. So we learn to trust him. Verse 15, in my vain or short or passing life, I have seen everything. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there's a wicked man who prolongs his life in evil doing. What is he talking about there? I've seen everything. So it's the trap of thinking that there will only be justice in this life. So that there's an expectation that things should be done a certain way. That good people should live a very long time and evil people should live a very short time. But that's a trap. That'll set you up for failure because that's not reality. That's not the universe that God has allowed. Now we're going to get into the end of it in chapter 8, and he's going to talk about how they will get theirs. There will be a punishment to come, and there will also be a reward to come in chapter 8. But we're not talking about all that. What he's saying is that I have looked around in my life, and there's a trap out there thinking that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. And Jesus addressed this. We've talked about this a couple times in this book. And Jesus says, who sinned? Right? This man was born blind. Actually, he doesn't say it. Somebody comes and asks him. They said, this man was born blind. Who sinned? Did he sin or did his parents sin? What was the trap in their thinking? Their thinking was, if something bad happens, you must have earned it. That's not true. Bad things happen to everybody, and good things happen also to everybody, more than others. That's a very good point. That was the trap of Job's friends, and it stole grace from Job's friends. They couldn't be gracious to their friend. They couldn't be merciful and they couldn't be kind because this idea in their mind was, well, you are suffering, therefore God's mad at you. And if God's mad at you, then I'm not going to be okay with you. I mean, if you upset him, then you upset everybody. You must have done something horrible. You lost all your kids, you lost all your money, you lost everything but that terrible wife. God's punishing you with her. Their capacity to show mercy and love and patience and kindness was blunted because of that thought process, because of that belief. So he's saying this, look, they are legitimately good, righteous people, and I've seen them get cut down in their prime. Don't fall for that trap. Now, he says in verse 16, be not overly righteous and do not make yourself too wise. Why should you destroy yourself? Interesting verse. Why would you not want to be too righteous or too wise? Pretentious, unteachable, arrogance, easier to fall to temptation. We know a class of individuals who are, the most righteous people. Jesus used them as an example. He said, if you want to get to heaven, you have to be more righteous than the Pharisees. And everybody's just aghast. They're like, what do you mean? Like, how can you be more righteous than those guys? They are the elite. They are the height. They are the epitome of righteousness. How can we be better than them? We're just sinners. So let's read a couple of verses. I want to go through this because I think it's important to recognize that true righteousness, generally speaking, goes unacknowledged. And false righteousness is generally what he's talking about, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So Romans chapter 1, verse 21. We're going to talk about wisdom first. Romans 1:21. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. So there is the modern, maybe not necessarily the modern, but there is the concept of enlightenment throughout the ages where people reject the one true God. Why? Why do they reject the one true God? Because they claim to have wisdom, understanding. They claim to have achieved enlightenment. The way that we hear that in our society, in our culture, is times have changed. We have learned so much more. We now have science, and what you believe is bigotry or hatred or put in, words that they say here. But the thrust of it is that there are those who are enlightened, the academic minds of our times who would argue and say there is no God, or if there was a God, he would be this way or that way. And when you look at the higher a person's education is, the less likely they are to believe and trust in the Bible. And so they claim to be wise, but they've actually become fools, and they've become darkened in their minds because they have rejected God. So I would say that Koheleth, the author of Ecclesiastes, is saying is, don't be too wise. Don't think of yourself as the divine mind, the one who knows all things and has accomplished a knowledge of all things. We are all still learning and very limited in our understanding. And that's the humble approach. The proud approach is, I'm the smartest person here, and everybody else, if you don't agree with my opinion, you're an idiot. You're just not smart enough to comprehend what I'm saying. We are talking about those who should not be too righteous, too wise, okay? Let's read 2 Timothy chapter 3. Now we're going to talk about righteousness. Chapter 3, verse 1, and then we'll jump down to verse 5. But understand this, that in the last times there will come times of difficulty. And then he talks about lots of different types of people who are disobedient, abusive, arrogant, treacherous, reckless. Verse 5, they have the appearance of godliness, but they deny its power. Avoid such people. For among them are those who creep into households and capture weak women, burdened with sins, led astray by various passions, always learning and never able to arrive at the knowledge of the truth. Okay? So these people have an appearance of godliness. There is an external reality that we would see and say, wow, they are so godly. They are so righteous. Yet they actually don't have the power of righteousness. It's just the external facade. And they actually creep in and take advantage of people. All right? They're the ones who look real good, bright and shiny, smile, and then they say, just give me your money. Just tithe the seed. Just give a little bit to the Lord, and I'll fly around on a private jet while you, the Joel Osteens of the world, the Benny Hinns, those who appear to have godliness. They look righteous. Now, we know them because they're terrible, but there's lots of false teachers. There's lots of false pastors. There's lots of people, even Bible study people like myself, right? Even I could take advantage of you. Just me having an appearance of godliness or righteousness, I could take advantage of a small group. It doesn't have to be this guy up here, the televangelist, okay? But that's just what we know the most of. We need to be alert, on guard at all times. There's the appearance, but not the reality. And I really think that that's what Ecclesiastes is talking about when he's saying, don't be too righteous. Don't be too wise. It's a self-righteousness. It is an arrogant, self-established life that says, I'm better than everybody else. That's going to hurt you. People don't like that. You'll talk down to them. You'll treat them other than created in God's image. And then being too wise, you'll think everybody's stupid and you're the smartest person. And you'll argue with people and they don't want to talk to you and they don't want to be your friend and you'll alienate people. The key is to be humble. It's to be humble, to walk with God in true righteousness, the righteousness of Christ. So Jesus addresses the Pharisees. Again, the elite, righteous people. He addresses to them. We're going to read this in Matthew chapter 23. We're going to read 23 through 28. It's going to be a long read. This is Jesus addressing the self-righteous. Matthew 23:1. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. So do and observe whatever they tell you, but not the works that they do. For they preach, but do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders. They themselves are not willing to move them with their fingers. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long, and they love the place of honor at feasts and the best seats in the synagogues, and greeting in the marketplaces, and being called rabbi by others. Rabbi's teacher, right? But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher. You are all brothers, and call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Christ, the Messiah. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in the people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte, and when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, if anyone swears by the temple, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. You blind fools, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that has made the gold sacred? And you say, if anyone swears by the altar, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift that is on the altar, he is bound by his oath. You blind men, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? So whoever swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. Whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others. You blind guides, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. I think this right here is the harshest words that Jesus ever spoke. And who did he speak it to? Hypocrites. People who would be considered overly righteous. And a scribe is a lawyer. Imagine trying to argue with the smartest person who knew the Bible much better than you. And you said, look, the way to heaven is to believe and trust in Jesus. And they fix their glasses, they put their finger in your chest, and they say, I know the Bible so much better than you, and it's not the way to heaven. The way to heaven is that you have to tithe, and you have to read your Bible, and you have to obey the 10 Commandments, and you must be circumcised, and you must follow the law of Moses. And they quote all this stuff to you. But see, here's the thing. In your simple, quote unquote, foolishness, you believe the simplicity of the gospel that says that Jesus paid it all. He is sufficient, and he will get me to heaven. I cannot get myself there. But here comes a wise person to try to persuade you into the law, into legalism. That is where you don't want to be overly righteous or overly wise. You're actually the fool in God's economy, in God's eyes. And so that's the warning. That's the snare. It's self-righteousness. It's legalism. It's a life without grace, mercy, faithfulness, justice. It's everything the Pharisees were, is what this writer is telling us about. Don't fall for the trap of legalism in believing that you are the epitome of the Christian economy, that you are the best Christian, and that you're so wonderful that other people should be exactly like you. That's a snare. That's a trap. That's pride in its core. That's in the heart. And I know it because I've been there. Most zealous Christians, when you become a Christian, you're excited for Jesus and you're on fire. It's very easy to turn into that person. And that's the warning. No. Don't be overly righteous. Be Christ righteous. Don't be overly wise. Carry the wisdom of God, which is the gospel. Verse 17, I skipped it. Be not overly wicked, neither be a fool. Why should you die before your time? I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. It's the opposite of self-righteousness. It is lawlessness. And we know that that is just downright foolishness, right? To be given over to drugs and addictions and lascivious living. It's a life without control, a life without discipline, a life fully given to desires and impulses. And that is the fastest way to lose your happiness. If you swallow the pill that says doing bad and evil and wicked things will make you happy, you will become exceedingly sorrowful and sad and miserable in a heartbeat. Sin will not satisfy, and you will go down the path of destruction, and it will hurt. So don't be wicked and don't be a fool. Don't be a hypocrite either. These studies are recorded live with God's people. We encourage you to find a study in a Bible-believing and teaching church and connect with God's people in God's Word. Have a blessed day. Verse 18, it is good that you should take hold of this, and from that withhold not your hand, for the one who fears God shall come out from both of them. Right. So what he's saying is, with your right hand, hold on to I can't be a hypocrite who acts like a Pharisee in legalism. But at the other side, I can't be an overt, outright dirtbag and a sinner. I need to hold these dear. Why? Because the only way to be delivered from those two snares is to have the fear of God, to recognize the greatness, the grandeur, the glory, the power, the splendor, and the judgment of God. That He is so much greater than us, and that by His great mercy and grace, He doesn't just cut us out. He doesn't just judge us, annihilate us, destroy us, but He has great patience with us. And so when we come before Him, we have a reverential fear that says, I am a little itty bitty ant, and God could crush me in a heartbeat. I will not trespass His laws. I will obey His every command, but I will not find satisfaction in my own works. I will not find satisfaction in my own righteousness. I will trust in Him. That's the fear of God. So recognize these two snares. How do you get away from them? The fear of God. A real recognition of who we are, our stature as insignificant little beings, and God's stature, which is so high and holy that the angels have to cover their feet. They have to cover their eyes so that they don't experience too much of God's holiness. Verse 19, wisdom gives strength to the wise more than 10 rulers who are in a city. So how do I gain strength? It's personal development. Wisdom for the wise man is his superpower. And it's not granted by what? High authorities. So let's just put it this way. Let's say I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It's easy. I'm the CEO of Apple. Now, Sean here is mediocre at best. Okay, his wisdom is like a 5 out of 10. He's not terrible, but he's not all that amazing. And then I promote him to this very high level of leadership. I have given him authority. I have given him power, but have I given him wisdom? Have I given him strength? No. He can be in that role as long as I don't fire him, but everybody around him will talk trash. If you do not have the personal development to thrive in a situation because of the wisdom that you have, it can't be given to you by somebody in a power structure or authority. 10 rulers, right? This is a good example would be Joseph. Joseph gets thrown in prison. The cupbearer and the baker come. They have dreams. Joseph goes and talks to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh puts him in a place of leadership. Would Joseph have been successful if he was not a wise man? No. It doesn't matter that Pharaoh put him in that position. What matters is that Joseph was qualified for the position, that his wisdom gave him strength. That's what he's talking about. What's the snare? If only somebody would give me the strength, if only somebody who is in authority would acknowledge me, then I could be strong. So I'm a leader in my company. I lead people. But ever since I started in my career field, I led people, no matter the level of authority I was given. And there was fights I had to fight because I wasn't given authority, but yet I was still a leader. So it was the strength that I had, the development of my own personhood, that allowed me the capacity to do my job at a higher level than anybody else. Then it was acknowledged by higher up people. So the snare is thinking, if only, like I would be better at my job if you gave me the opportunity to be better at it. That doesn't work. I would be a better parent if I only had more children. That doesn't work. You just need to be a good parent with what you have. Jesus says it as being faithful in little will make you faithful in much. That's wisdom. If you can manage a few dollars, you can manage millions of dollars. If you can't manage $100, you will not manage millions of dollars. Verse 20, surely there is not a righteous man on the earth who does good and never sins. What is this talking about? That's everybody. 21 through 22. Do not take to heart all the things that people say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. Your heart knows that many times you yourself have cursed others. This is a fun one. Yeah, because we all make mistakes. So when other people make mistakes against you, when somebody's like, oh, you walk by and they're like, oh, he's smelly, or he always has bad breath, or he always says and like, and oh, he's so boring, right? Like when you hear somebody and they say something negative about you, he's like, look, don't let it really affect you, because they're not actively trying to hurt you. Just like the one time you said something about that other person, you weren't actively trying to hurt them. You were just being an idiot. And since you're being an idiot, just assume that they're being an idiot and show them grace. Be gracious. Say, you know what? I hope that what they meant was something probably nicer, but it is what it is. You let it roll off your back like a duck. Somebody's opinion about you shouldn't matter. Maybe is a better point. So like if you hear your servant cursing you, right? If somebody is talking mad trash about you, that shouldn't affect your opinion of yourself, because we want God's opinion of us. We don't even judge ourselves. Paul's like, I don't even judge myself. Am I a good Christian? Am I a this? Am I a that? I don't even judge myself. Jesus will judge me, and I'm accountable to him. Okay, 23 and 24. All this I have tested by wisdom, and I said, I will be wise, but it was far from me. That which has been is far off and deep and very deep. Who can find it out? So I think this can be encouraging, because as much as we read the scriptures, it tells us to be wise. Wisdom is important. The wisdom of God, Jesus is the wisdom of God. So here, what he's talking about is he's saying that it's far from him, that he doesn't feel wise. He feels like it's too deep, it's too far, it's too difficult. It's a lifelong journey. It's this never-ending task. He's saying, who can find it? Who can discover wisdom? Who can take hold of it? And I think what he's trying to express is that the lifelong journey of growing in wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, it just takes time. And when you think you get it, you still have room to grow. You're always moving forward. Then he says, verse 25, I turned my heart to know and to search and to seek wisdom and the scheme of things, and to know the wickedness of folly and the foolishness that is madness. He's been repeating this over and over again, so he's kind of bringing us back to what he's talking about, like the core of the book. And what he's trying to say is, I'm trying to understand what's going on in the world. In verse 26, he says this, I find something more bitter than death. What does that mean to be more bitter than death? It's worse than death. It's more painful, more difficult than death. If you've lost anybody, if you've been near somebody who's lost somebody, a widow or widower, or somebody who's lost a son or a daughter, a mom or a brother, like death is hard. It is extraordinarily difficult, especially if they don't know Jesus. And what he's saying is, worse than losing a loved one to death is this. This is the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and whose hands are fetters. He who pleases God escapes her, but the sinner is taken by her. So this is the seductress, or the seducer. This is somebody who loses everything to pursue a relationship with the wrong person. It's the description of this woman is that she is the snare. She is nets. and her hands are like prison chains. It's being locked up in prison. There's plenty of people who would agree with this, but they have to have gone through the pain of it to relate to it. It is better to be alone than it is to be with somebody who's wrong for you. To be in a bad marriage with the wrong person, it's like being thrown in prison every hour of every day. And I've never experienced this because obviously my wife is wonderful, but I watch guys that I work with and you can see who does not want to go home. Their home life is a wreck. And their relationship is so difficult that they just are in prison. And it is more bitter than death. It is almost living torture. When you are married to the wrong person, when you have been given to adultery, and now you're ensnared to this man or this woman who has led you down the path of destruction. It is so damaging and destroying. It destroys the soul and the mind and the spirit, and it pulls people in so many different directions. Pastor Ben talks about divorce, and he said it is the most difficult thing that he counsels people with because there's so much pain involved with a spouse who has lost your trust or otherwise when you've gotten a divorce for any reason. The bitterness, the anger, the lack of forgiveness, the hatred, there's nothing like a divorce. So he goes on. The person who pleases God escapes her. So it is seeking God's approval first and foremost. It is being married to the right person is the person that God has selected. Not the person that you think, right? Like if you had to pick, in your mind, this is just a 10 out of a 10 person. This guy is just an Adonis, or this woman is super beautiful. 10 out of 10. But God says, no, that's not the person I have for you. I have this person over here. You have to be able to find the approval of God over what you think your fleshly desires want. Because what ends up happening is looks fade, and a sour person in a beautiful body is nothing but a sour person, because that beautiful body becomes less important the longer you're married. So he goes on, 27, behold, this is what I found, says the preacher, while adding one thing to another to find the scheme of things, which my soul has sought repeatedly, but I have not found. One man among 1,000 I found, but a woman among all these I have not found. See, this alone I found, that God made man upright, but they have sought out many schemes. So, I don't know. He's funny, okay? So he says that I've looked for a wise person. I've gone out there, I've tried to make friends who are wise people, and I'll tell you what, I can't find them. One person, one guy out of 1,000. One man out of 1,000, I can find wisdom. But you know what I never found? A woman who's wise. Now, I don't know why he's making that point, but that's what he's saying. And he says this in verse 29. This alone is what I found. God has created all of us to be righteous, but we have all sought our own ways. I translated it a little bit. We have all picked our own path. He has created us to be righteous, and we have chosen the way of sin. So here's the point. We have a measured life with measured outcomes, that we have prosperity in its season, we have difficulty in its season, and the outcome is up to God. We just need to be faithful through the storm. Be grateful for the past, be mindful of the present, and be hopeful for the future. Being wise takes a lifetime, quote unquote. Growing in wisdom and knowledge takes a lifetime. Being a God pleaser and seeking his approval above all else. In Galatians 1:10, Paul is arguing for the sake of the gospel, and he says, if anybody preaches a different gospel, if anybody, an angel, or even if I come to you and say, you know what, there's another way to heaven, or a different way to heaven, or you have to add works, whatever it might be. If anybody manipulates the gospel, let them be cursed. And then after he says that, he says, look, am I trying to make you happy? Am I trying to please men? Or am I trying to please God? Is he the one that I work for? Or do I work for you? So he says, if you don't like it, not my problem. I'm being faithful to the one that matters the most. So pleasing God over seeking other people's approval. Next week, we will be in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, higher authority. Structures of authority and how they intermingle in our lives.